Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the dimly lit bedroom, Trenton Marshall stared at his distorted reflection, an image he barely recognized. The mirror, his trusted ally and confidant, revealed the stark truth. Beneath the strained fabric of his dress shirt, a round belly had taken residence, a daily reminder of the passing years. With each passing month, the numbers on the scale crept upward, a relentless march towards a heavier, unfamiliar version of himself. High school memories flashed through his mind, a time when he was young and fit, a contrast to the person staring back at him now. The upcoming reunion, a mere week away, seemed more like a torture chamber than a celebration. With a deep exhalation, he adjusted his attire, the shirt tucked and untucked multiple times, unable to conceal the unwanted weight gain. Trenton couldn't help but compare his seemingly mundane existence to the anticipated success stories of his peers. The navy blazer helped somewhat, creating a slightly more structured silhouette. But there was no hiding the truth. Years of fast food lunches on sales calls and beer nights watching sports had taken their toll. The drive to the old high school gymnasium felt interminable. Each mile closer brought another anxious thought. Would Michelle Watkins remember how she'd turned him down for prom? Would the former football players still travel in their tight-knit pack, making the same jokes at everyone else's expense? Parking in the crowded lot, Trenton sat motionless behind the wheel, watching graduates streaming toward the decorated entrance. The women all seemed to glide effortlessly in heels, their dresses flattering figures that didn't seem to have changed much in a decade. The men stood tall and confident, most looking trimmer than their yearbook photos. "Just 2 hours," he promised himself, finally gathering the courage to exit his sedan. The gymnasium smelled exactly the same, floor polish and lingering sweat, now masked with floral arrangements and catering trays. A banner reading, "Class of 2013, still awesome after all these years," hung above the entrance. "Trenton Marshall? Is that you?" The voice belonged to Courtney Phillips, former head cheerleader and perpetual social butterfly. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves around a face that had somehow improved with age, her black cocktail dress accentuating a figure kept trim despite having 2 children according to her name tag. "Hey, Courtney. Great to see you." "You too. Wow, it's been forever." Her eyes performed a quick scan from his face down to his midsection and back up. The brief flicker of surprise didn't go unnoticed. "So, what are you up to these days?" The conversation proceeded predictably. Jobs, locations, relationship statuses. Trenton's answers grew increasingly short as he became hyper-aware of his appearance compared to everyone else. Even the formerly awkward mathlete guys had transformed into confident, fit adults. "Well, I should circulate. Grab some food. They have an amazing spread over there." Courtney's emphasis on food felt deliberate, cutting. "Great catching up." The evening deteriorated from there. Standing alone at the high cocktail table with a plate of untouched hors d'oeuvres, Trenton overheard the comment that would change everything. "Man, look at Marshall. Guess he found his comfort zone after high school. That's not a dad bod. That's a full-on beer keg." The laughter that followed came from Brett Henson and his former football teammates. They didn't bother lowering their voices, and several heads turned toward Trenton, some with pity, others joining in the amusement. The plate went into the trash. The exit couldn't come fast enough. Back in his car, Trenton felt a combination of shame and anger burning through him, tears threatening at the corners of his eyes. "Fuck them," he muttered, but the words rang hollow. It wasn't them. It was him. He'd let himself go, and tonight was just the mirror he'd been avoiding. The next 2 weeks passed in a fog of depression. Work provided little distraction, and evenings at home alone grew longer. Scrolling through social media only twisted the knife as reunion photos circulated, carefully excluding him from most shots. Late one Tuesday night, 3 beers deep and feeling particularly self-destructive, Trenton found himself in a rabbit hole of fitness transformation stories. Men who'd lost hundreds of pounds, before and after photos of dramatic weight loss. But one particular account caught his attention, a timeline of someone whose transformation went beyond weight loss. The profile belonged to someone called Veronica, who'd posted her journey from an overweight, unhappy man to a confident, curvy woman. The accompanying text described how cross-dressing had started as a way to feel better about her body, creating curves in places that had previously just been roundness, corsets to create waistlines, padding to balance proportions, clothing chosen to flatter new silhouettes. Fascinated, Trenton clicked to another similar account. Then another. An entire online community existed of people who'd used traditionally feminine clothing and shapewear to transform their appearances completely. Some identified as transgender, others as crossdressers, some fluid between presentations.
"This is how you make a beer belly disappear,"
read one caption, beneath a photo of a formidable hourglass figure in a red evening gown. The before photo showed a man not unlike Trenton himself. Something awakened inside him. Not just curiosity, but possibility. The first purchases arrived discreetly packaged 3 days later. A basic corset in black satin, silicone hip pads, and a simple breast form set. Trenton had measured carefully, following guides from the forums he'd been devouring information from for days. Closing the bedroom curtains tight, he stripped down to his underwear and began the process described in detailed tutorials. The corset was challenging, requiring several attempts before he managed to lace it correctly at the back. The compression was intense, but not painful, creating a defined waist where before there had only been roundness. Hip pads positioned carefully on each thigh created the beginning of an hourglass shape. The breast forms, secured with special adhesive against his chest, completed the transformation of his silhouette. Standing before the mirror, Trenton barely recognized the figure reflected back. Even without makeup or a wig, without clothes selected to enhance this new shape, the change was remarkable. His beer belly hadn't disappeared, but had been redistributed, controlled, repurposed into something surprisingly feminine. "Holy shit," he whispered, turning slowly, examining himself from all angles. The next deliveries arrived throughout the week, flowing maxi dresses in deep purple that draped perfectly over the newly created curves, structured blazers in forest green that nipped in at the newly defined waist, shoes with modest heels that added height and changed his posture. The first time Trenton dressed completely, adding a long brown wig with soft waves and simple makeup following online tutorials, the person in the mirror wasn't Trenton at all.
"Hello, Layla,"
he said softly to his reflection, the name coming from nowhere and yet feeling immediately right. Layla wore a deep purple maxi dress with 3/4 sleeves, the empire waist flattering her figure, the flowing skirt hiding any masculinity in her stride. The forest green blazer added structure and sophistication, nipping in dramatically at the corseted waist. The brown wig framed her face softly, making her features appear more delicate. Something profound shifted that evening. Layla wasn't a costume or a game. She felt real, authentic, like she'd always existed beneath Trenton's skin, waiting to emerge. The hours spent as Layla turned into entire weekends, Online shopping replaced sports channels. Makeup tutorials replaced beer nights. Supportive online communities replaced the lonely scrolling through former classmates' lives. 3 months after the reunion, Trenton sat at his computer, logged into a forum that had become his lifeline. He'd shared photos of Layla's evolution, received guidance on voice training, learned about more permanent transformation options. Today, he typed the message he'd been considering for weeks. I don't think this is just cross-dressing for me anymore. When I'm Layla, I'm not pretending. I'm finally being authentic. I think I've been hiding from myself my whole life. I'm ready to make this permanent. Where do I start? The responses came quickly. Supportive, informative, practical. Links to gender therapists, information about hormone replacement therapy, exercise regimens specifically designed for feminine body composition, personal stories from those who'd made similar journeys. The appointment with the therapist was terrifying but liberating. 6 sessions later, Trenton had a referral letter for an endocrinologist. The conversation about hormone therapy was detailed, honest about the changes, both desired and challenging. Some things will change quickly, others take time, the doctor explained. Fat redistribution, skin softening, and emotional shifts may begin within months. Muscle mass reduction takes longer. And of course, you'll need to maintain a proper diet and exercise program to optimize results. Layla nodded, absorbing every word. Trenton had researched extensively, but hearing it from a medical professional made it real in a new way. 2 weeks later, the first dose of hormone replacement therapy marked the beginning of Layla's physical transformation. The mental transformation had already taken root months earlier. Parallel to medical transition, Layla dedicated herself to specific exercises targeting her core and building her hips and bust line. The corsets remained important tools, training her waist gradually into a more feminine shape. The beer belly that had been the source of Trenton's shame became part of Layla's curves, redistributing with hormones and targeted workouts. The corporate world presented its own challenges. Trenton's job required face-to-face meetings with clients who'd known him for years. After discussions with HR and surprisingly supportive senior management, a transition plan was implemented. Clients received professional communications about Layla Marshall joining the team, while Trenton would be moving to another division. Some clients figured it out. Others didn't. Those who recognized that Layla was Trenton largely kept it professional, focusing on the same quality of service they'd always received. A few accounts were reassigned, but fewer than anticipated. Co-workers adapted at varying paces. Some immediately used correct pronouns and her new name. Others stumbled but tried. A small minority remained awkward but civil. The regional manager position remained hers, with the respect she'd earned as Trenton transferring more smoothly than she'd dared hope. 1 year after beginning hormone therapy, Layla stood before her mirror in a fitted dark teal dress that hugged curves that were increasingly her own. The corset was now optional rather than necessary. The breast forms had been replaced by modest but distinctly feminine development from hormones. The wig had been set aside as her natural brown hair grew out into a stylish bob that framed her face, softened now by fat redistribution and careful skincare routines. The invitation to the impromptu 11-year reunion arrived via social media, apparently organized after the 10-year event proved so successful. Layla smiled at the irony. For her, that night had been rock bottom. For others, apparently, it had been worth repeating. Her finger hovered over the decline button, but something stopped her. The woman in the mirror wasn't hiding anymore. The shame that had driven Trenton from that gymnasium had transformed, just as she had. Maybe it's time, she whispered to her reflection. The RSVP was sent with her new name. Layla Marshall would be attending. Preparing for the reunion required more emotional fortitude than physical preparation. Layla selected a figure-hugging scarlet evening gown that showcased her natural hourglass figure, paired with modest black heels and a simple black clutch. Her makeup was elegant, but not overdone, her brown hair styled in loose waves that brushed her shoulders. The gymnasium looked remarkably similar to the previous year, though the banner now proclaimed, "Class of 2013, the reunion continues." Taking a deep breath, Layla crossed the threshold, chin held high. "Hello? I don't think we've... Wait, did you graduate with us?" The greeter at the name tag table looked confused. "Yes, I did. Layla Marshall. You might have known me by a different name last year." Recognition dawned slowly on the woman's face, followed by a commendable attempt at nonchalance. "Oh, of course. Let me find your tag." Moving through the crowd felt surreal. Some faces registered confusion, others curiosity. A few did double takes but politely redirected their attention. Layla got herself a glass of wine and surveyed the room, spotting Courtney Phillips holding court near the photo display. "Excuse me?" Layla approached the group with a confidence Trenton had never possessed. "Courtney? It's been a while." Courtney turned, her practiced social smile firmly in place. "Hello, I'm sorry, have we met?" "We spoke last year. I've changed a bit since then." The puzzlement lingered for a moment before Courtney's eyes widened. "Trenton? But you're Layla now, yes!" The silence that fell over the group might have been uncomfortable a year ago. Now, Layla simply sipped her wine and waited. "Wow," Courtney finally managed. "You look amazing, actually. That dress is stunning on you." "Thank you. How have your kids been? They must be, 6 and 8 now?" The conversation flowed surprisingly easily after that initial shock. Other classmates drifted into and out of their circle, some recognizing her, others being discreetly filled in by Courtney when Layla stepped away briefly. "Is that a Marshall I see?" The voice behind her belonged to Brett Henson, former football captain and the source of the beer keg comment that had sent Trenton fleeing the previous year. Layla turned slowly, expression neutral. "Brett, yes, it's me." Brett's face cycled through several expressions: confusion, recognition, surprise, and finally, something approaching respect. "Well, damn. I wouldn't have recognized you."
That was rather the point. Layla replied coolly. "Look, I think I owe you an apology. I was a jerk last year, said some stuff I shouldn't have." "Yes, you were. And yes, you did." Brett shifted uncomfortably. "For what it's worth, you look great. Happy, too." "I am happy. Probably for the first time since high school, actually." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations, some awkward, others surprisingly genuine. Former classmates asked questions that ranged from thoughtful to inappropriate, which Layla fielded with varying degrees of patience. A few women complimented her dress, her shoes, her makeup technique. One former drama club member quietly mentioned having a transgender cousin and offered additional support resources. Near the end of the evening, Michelle Watkins, she who had rejected Trenton's prom invitation years ago, approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "I figured you might need this after navigating this crowd all night," she said, offering 1 flute. "I've been watching you work the room. You've got more confidence in that scarlet dress than most of us put together." "Thanks." Layla accepted the champagne. "It's been an interesting evening." "I can imagine. You know, I always thought there was something more to you in high school. You seemed contained, like you were holding yourself back." Layla considered this. "That's perceptive. I was definitely hiding,
though I didn't understand from what, back then. Well, you're not hiding anymore. That's brave. Michelle raised her glass. To finally becoming who we're meant to be. They clinked glasses, and Layla felt a chapter closing. The scared, shame-filled person who'd fled this gym a year ago was gone. In his place stood a woman who'd found her truth, her confidence, herself. As the evening wound down, Layla said her goodbyes, exchanged genuine contact information with several classmates she'd never connected with in high school, and walked toward the exit with her head high.
Ms. Marshall.
Layla turned to find the school's longtime photography teacher, Mr. Winters, now silver-haired but still recognizable.
I've been taking reunion photos all night,
he said, camera in hand.
And I realized I didn't get one of you. Would you mind?
A year ago, Trenton had actively avoided the camera, slinking along the walls to stay out of group shots. Now, Layla smiled and straightened her posture, the scarlet dress catching the light. I'd be delighted, she said. The camera flashed, capturing the woman she'd become. Confident, authentic, and finally at home in her own skin. The beer belly that had been the source of so much shame had transformed along with her, becoming part of the curves that now defined her. The journey from Trenton to Layla had been about so much more than physical appearance, but standing there in the scarlet dress, being truly seen perhaps for the first time, Layla felt the transformation complete. Outside in the cool evening air, Layla paused to look back at the gymnasium. The building that had housed so much of her past, both the confused, hidden years of high school and the humiliating reunion that had sparked her journey, now seemed smaller somehow, less significant. Her phone buzzed with a notification. The reunion photographer had already posted some images to the class group. There she was, radiant in scarlet, standing tall among former classmates who hadn't truly known her until tonight. Layla smiled, tucked her phone away, and walked to her car. The future stretched before her, unwritten and full of possibility. The journey hadn't been easy, and challenges remained, but for the first time in her life, she was moving forward as her authentic self. The scarlet dress caught the parking lot lights as she drove away, leaving the past firmly behind. 2 years later, Layla sat in her newly renovated home office, reviewing sales projections for the upcoming quarter. The promotion to National Sales Director had come 6 months ago, recognition of her consistent performance and leadership abilities. The forest green blazer she wore over a cream silk blouse had become something of a signature look. Professional, feminine, confident. Her brown hair now fell past her shoulders in natural waves. No wig needed. The hormone therapy continued to subtly reshape her body, working in concert with her dedicated fitness routine. The corsets had been relegated to special occasions rather than daily wear, her natural waistline having developed its own definition. The doorbell interrupted her concentration. Padding to the front door in stocking feet, Layla found a delivery, a thick cream envelope bearing the embossed logo of her high school. "You've got to be kidding," she murmured, opening the envelope to find an invitation to the 15-year reunion. A handwritten note was paper-clipped to the formal invitation. "Layla, the planning committee specifically asked me to make sure you got this invitation. Your transformation inspired several classmates, myself included, to make positive changes in our lives. I've lost 50 pounds and finally left my toxic marriage. Others have similar stories. We'd be honored if you'd consider attending. Michelle Watkins, Reunion Committee." Layla smiled, tracing her finger over the embossed lettering. The journey from beer-bellied Trenton to the woman she had become wasn't just her story anymore. It had become part of a larger narrative about authenticity and courage. Setting the invitation on her desk, Layla returned to her sales projections. The 15-year reunion was still months away. She had plenty of time to decide whether to attend, and if so, what to wear. Perhaps something in deep purple this time, or maybe forest green, a nod to the beginning of her journey. Whatever she chose, she would attend as herself, Layla Marshall, complete and whole, the beer belly long since transformed into curves that finally felt right, the shame replaced with pride, the hiding replaced with living authentically. The woman in the mirror now matched the woman she'd always been inside. That was the true transformation, far more significant than any change in appearance. And that was the story worth sharing at any reunion.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!